Hi, I'm Francis Shen with the Dana Foundation Career Network in Neuroscience and Society, and Key is with us also.
Hi, I'm Key Williams. I'm a second year at Harvard studying under Dr. Shen at the Dana Center.
And we're really excited to be joined today by Professor Timothy Emanuel Brown. He is an assistant professor in the departments of bioethics and humanities at the University of Washington School of Medicine, also a member there of the University of Washington Center for Neurotechnology, and a leading expert in neuroethics. Dr. Brown, thanks so much for joining us. And could you tell us a little bit about the pathway, the career pathway that led you to what you're doing now?
Thanks for having me. The career trajectory that led me to the position I'm in now it seems very straightforward on the surface, but it's a little bit more complicated. I started off in community college at the age of 16 years old after leaving high school early. I went to one of those Los Angeles inner city schools with the cops at the front, checking for guns and things like that. And so I left and I ended up in community college. I took a philosophy of science class, and I was hooked. I took as many philosophy classes as I could. I declared myself a philosophy major, and I ended up transferring to UC Santa Cruz, my alma mater. And I was really interested in philosophy of science and the philosophy of art. I was interested in those things together, and I wanted to figure out a way to combine them somehow. And eventually, when I ended up in applying for graduate programs, I found the University of Washington's philosophy department. And they had a reputation for thinking about science and society. They had a reputation for thinking about philosophy of science in a way that acknowledged the very real overlap between the way we think about values more broadly in society and the way we conduct scientific practice. And so my reputation for thinking about art and science together preceded me. Their reputation preceded them. It was a good match. And then eventually, under the mentorship of Dr. Sarah Goering in the philosophy department, I joined a group of a motley crew, if you will, of electrical engineers, computer scientists, and neurosurgeons that called themselves the Center for Sensory Motor Neural Engineering back then. Now they call themselves the Center for Neurotechnology. And they were really interested in the potential impact of the technologies they wanted to build on society, on patients. They wanted to build devices that would help with stroke rehabilitation, that would help with spinal cord rehabilitation, and they wanted to figure out what the big ethical questions were. And so we were recruited to answer that question. And skip ahead 8 years later, we're still answering that question with them. And that was really interesting. And now I'm in this position because that experience put me in a laboratory and gave me the positionality that very few people trained in philosophy have available to them. I ended up being the humanist embedded in a laboratory, and that's a very strange position to be in. I ended up helping run experiments. I ended up doing interviews with participants in research. I ended up working toward a number of different outreach goals. I ended up at the International Neuroethics Society, doing a lot of different things there. And I ended up as an assistant professor of bioethics and humanities. And yeah, it's been a wild ride.
That is inspirational. Going off of your previous experience, what would you say the day-to-day life of a neuroethics and philosophy professor looks like?
So I think it looks different for everybody, but for me, part of my day is spent writing grants. Right now, I'm in the early stage of my career, full disclosure. And so a good part of my day is spent looking for and writing and brainstorming grants. Another part is working on grants that I've already been invited to be part of, that I've already been awarded. And another part is teaching, right? So I teach 2 courses a year. One course on that's an introductory course on bioethics, and another course that's on social justice and healthcare. I think it's important to remember that a lot of people within neuroethics, they approach neuroethics from a lot of different places, right? So I'm approaching it from a philosophical background and with the support of a bioethics department. And so being in the department I'm in, one of my primary goals is to be a scholar within the space of bioethics, not only for the field more broadly, but for my local community. And so a lot of my obligations go there. But I work on collaborative research papers. I work on 2 grants specifically, one looking at the possibilities for diversity within basic neuroscientific research through the NIH, more specifically through a project looking at whole brain donation and some of this really cutting edge research to figure out what kinds of cell types there are in the brain. Another on brain computer interfaces, but this really wild and amazing idea that we can make artificial intelligence more like a brain. So think about neural networks that are written in software. How could they be more like a neuron? Very interesting stuff. And so I work with both of these grants simultaneously, and sometimes that involves, well, let's get it out of the way. Lots and lots of meetings. I have lots of meetings every single day. I just got out of a meeting looking at a piece of software that takes pictures of slabbed brains and turns them into a 3D image. And part of the question is like, what are the metadata that come attached to those data, and what kinds of ethical implications are there for that? So, but yeah, I do lots and lots of meetings. And I have an ethics meeting on Wednesdays with my colleagues Aaron Klein and Dr. Sarah Goering, where we talk about neuroethics issues for about 3 hours on Wednesdays. So that's what my day looks like. Meetings, class, writing. Maybe I get lunch. It's a pretty packed day usually.
That does sound a bit hectic, but what would you say, using your research, to students and others watching this, the advice that you would give them about pursuing a career in neuroethics?
Well, the first thing is, and this is a really good question, and I get this question a lot, and I think the first step to answering it is to realize that neuroethics is in some ways a subfield that occupies a lot of different territory at the same time. So neuroethics might be something that a neurosurgeon worries about when they do consultations with patients, and they make decisions about what treatments what treatments to recommend to which patients. It may be something that an electrical engineer worries about when they make devices, and they get the inkling that this device could be used in a neurology context. It may be something that a device manufacturer worries about. It may be something that that a neuroscientist worries about when they create categories for different mental health phenomena, mental health conditions. Neuroethics comes up in a lot of different places at a lot of different times, in a lot of different moments. And it's something different for everyone. And it's important to recognize that. A lot of people come to me asking, how do I get into neuroethics, from the perspective of of people who might think that you go into a program and it's called the neuroethics program, you get a master's in it or something like that, and you go and you become a neuroethicist. I don't really think there is such a thing. There are positions that are specifically branded neuroethics, but neuroethics as a field, it kind of doesn't exist. I mean, we exist. What we do exists. I'm not denying the reality and the impact of our work, but I think that you bring your own professional identity and your own worries to it, right? It's an interdisciplinary space where a bunch of scholars from lots of different fields come together to talk about shared interests. Shared interests in this thing called neuroscience, this thing called neuroengineering, this thing called mental health, and perhaps this thing that we call neurorights. And we try to figure out some puzzles related to the brain sciences more generally in a shared space. And so figuring out what your identity is in that space is absolutely important. Do you want to be the surgeon? Do you want to be the neuroscientist? Do you want to be the engineer? Do you want to be the computer scientist? You have to figure out which door you want to go through, and get comfortable with that idea that neuroethics will be the thing that you sort of push for within your own discipline. And you come to the subfield of neuroethics with your disciplinary training. And I think that makes people more robust. But I also think it's the most realistic way to think about neuroethics and how to get into it.
That was great. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. That was really cool.
No,
that's all we need.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're all set. Okay. Thanks again. Have a great week. Appreciate it. Good luck finishing up.